Okay. LinkedIn lunch break. Let's see what the LinkedIn folks are offering us today. This is the kind of side project that's worth giving a shit about. I will take your crap. GAC bags. Hold on. GAC bags is my side project to make the world's most entertaining and useful personal waste bag. I had the idea this summer while hiking and climbing. That's not interesting to me. Software development managers, do not ask your staff to just make it work. Software developers, if you're asked to do this, just say no. Just keep coding. We can always fix it later. Yeah, I guess to a point, because, it's a little bit about balance, because you can do things a little bit quick and dirty, but it's really all about it. This is not really very indicative of what that would look like, in my opinion, because it would be closer to Lego blocks, because you can undo Lego blocks. But for this, and you can do things that are maybe like use weird colors or anything like that. Like if you have to make something with Legos and you just have to get the thing done, use some weird colors sometimes, or use some pieces that maybe like aren't the best pieces, but it gets it done to an extent. Like you don't want it to be like completely ridiculous where you just basically have to rebuild the whole thing if it's you don't want to have to rebuild the whole thing if it's like such a huge mess that there's just no other way. But you can do stuff that's a little bit quicker and dirtier and kind of go back. I mean, I think it's a little, especially when you're doing startup stuff or MVP type things, you don't want to like spend a ton of time trying to make the perfect code or anything like that. You do just kind of want to get stuff out, but you just want to do it a little bit mindfully so that you know that when you do come back to make it better, it's not a huge mess. This doesn't communicate things very well. I would say maybe Lego blocks, and if you make it so that you basically have to take apart half the thing, take apart half the Legos in order to fix what you did, then that's a problem. But if you have to maybe take 20% of it apart and put it back together, that's really not a big deal, especially when it's revenue and stuff is on the line. So I don't completely agree with this. Let's see. Catastrophic failure. Yeah, this stuff is kind of crazy. The AI stuff that they implement deletes an entire database without permission. That's why it's really important if you have AI agents when it comes to building out code bases and stuff. You need copies. You need to make sure that the AI agent, everything it does has no real super huge impact on the basics of what your application does, and it needs to be contained. So like if you're, for instance, testing out AI agents on your local machine for development, it's really unwise to have the AI agent work in the actual it's really unwise for you to have the AI agent work in the actual base computer, like in your actual base computer. You want to actually create a Docker container or something and have it run only in that container. So that way, if it does something crazy, because it totally could just erase all your files. So you want to have it like somewhat set apart from the rest of your operating system. And same thing with anything tied to production. You want to have it contained so that worst case scenario, if it deletes everything that's in there, it doesn't affect the main thing that is bringing money, or in the case of your local hardware, it doesn't completely erase all your files from your computer, and it only kills anything that's in the container that it's running in. Vibe coding cleanup specialist. That's a real job title now. Mentioned this, it made me laugh. People whose full-time job is fixing AI generated code. 18 months in a vibe coding area, we've already invented a new profession just to clean up after it. And I get it, vibe coding is fast, it feels like magic, and it's great for getting an idea tested super fast. We even use it ourselves with clients to test ideas quickly. The problem is when it breaks, you're staring at code you can't read, hoping someone can fix it. Bubble's approach is different. The AI agents build visually so you can actually see what it did. No mystery code. So this is basically an advertisement, but it does kind of hit on a real thing right now where it's unwise to, I mean, it's cool to like use like something like Lovable to do mockups and stuff of something, how something could work just for product development reasons. But when it comes to actually building apps that you're going to deploy, you don't want to just ask ChatGPT or whatever IDE AI plugin that you're using to make stuff and then just copy paste and then be done with it. And if it works, cool, then who cares? What you want to do is have something that has very like concise instructions, and Strands, I think, is doing a lot with that, where you can have files in your code base so that it always has to refer back to your basically quote unquote configuration files with all the instructions, so that it follows the same pattern whenever it gives you code. And there's tools that are making this better. I mean, I don't know what this bubble thing is, but you can really do this with some of AWS's tools and have configuration files that basically give it scaffolding to work with. And that way it doesn't come out with something that's crazy. And also, you really do need to make sure that you create meaningful tests. So if I think vibe coding cleanup specialist, I don't think it's like a problem for that to be a job. But if you're building your own apps, or you have somebody you're implementing vibe coding on your team with some certain things, you want to ensure that you probably best to go with TDD at that point, so you can create meaningful tests and then have it work off of those meaningful tests. And that way it'll give you a better result. And also that way, you know for sure that it's actually going to work with any use cases that you can come up with, and it's not going to break in prod. I have one rule when it comes to code reviews. First two comments about grammar, you're done reviewing code. At dinner the other night, someone told me they had a non-developer reviewing all their code. I actually stopped mid-bite. Code reviews are not for catching typos, rewriting comments. They're about avoiding real problems like logic errors that can quietly break everything. A grade review asks, why was it built this way? Can it be simpler? Is it clean, readable, and less prone to bugs? Does the developer learn something from the review? Non-devs reviewing code might mean well, but if your review has more grammar feedback than logic text, you're not helping, you're just proofreading. What do you think? Yeah. I don't have anything to say about that. Sure. For developers only, have you ever done a technical task for an interview, got told you passed, scheduled your final rounds, and then radio silence, only to get a call 4 days later saying actually another engineer reviewed your code and now it's not good enough? That just happened to me with Clear Bank, the process, recruiter call, tech chat, refactor, C# payment. Okay, so this is something that people really need to know about. I think some people are kind of starting to pick up on it a little bit, but it is really important, and you have to kind of try to like look out for signs for this. But there is a real thing where, especially like people that have maybe more on their recruiting force than they maybe need, what they'll do is they'll set up job interviews, and the homework task is actually work that they want done, but they don't want to hire somebody to do it. And so what they'll do is they'll have a bunch of people do this homework task for a quote unquote interview. And it's really just to crowdsource new ideas or new way of doing things for a problem that the internal team hasn't really been able to figure out the best way. So really they're just getting they're like, say you have 30 people, 30 engineers that want this job, which is pretty easy to find. And then you have 30 people do this homework assignment, and you have this problem where somebody says you got to make this better, or nobody on the team can really make it better, or really even knows what's going on with this, or maybe they fired the person that made it. And so what they'll do is they'll crowdsource solutions to this, and then you'll have somebody on the team review the solutions and test it to see which one's best. And so really it's just these quote unquote interviews are really just free labor. And I actually had this problem too. It was this building materials company where they kind of find out their whole platform helps you to estimate how much a new building project is going to cost. And they gave me this homework assignment, and I spent a good deal of time on it, but I realized that it was probably one of these cases, because one of the biggest signs is that they don't give you a time limit. They don't give you a time limit. They don't give you, it's not systematized so that you can only spend maybe 3 hours or so on the problem. And it's also, they don't give you a date by which it's supposed to be done. It's like, you can take as much time as you like, or we'd like to have it by then. There's no solid date or no solid time in which to complete the project. And that means this is something that people on the team don't know how to do, because if they did know how to do it, then they would know exactly how long it should take. And it's a very systemized thing to ensure competency of the candidate. But I knew probably halfway through, like, this was definitely one of those situations. I did it because it was really good practice, but that's likely what's happening here. This is probably a fake interview situation, and they basically had a bunch of people try the same problem just to see if they can get something good. And all they really had to spend was recruiter time that they were already spending for, and they didn't really need. So watch out for that. Hot take. A core principle of Agile is soon to be obsolete. One of the holiest lines in the Agile Manifesto is working software over comprehensive documentation. But in the era of agentic spec-driven development, this is flipping on its head. That's what I was talking about before. In a new potential reality, if AI agents can reliably generate code from detailed specification, the spec becomes the asset. The code is just a disposable artifact. The new age of compilation, human code to machine code equals traditional compiler, human spec to source code equals AI agent compiler. If we can regenerate the entire code base every time requirements change, do we ever need to refactor again? In this future, we won't manage code bases, we manage specs. In the best part, we might be able to delete technical debt. This is, I don't know if pipe dream is the right word for this, but it is like something that probably won't be doable for like the next 5 or 10 years, I would say. And the reason for that is because AI is just not good enough yet. The consumer available AI models are just, they're not good enough when it comes to handling large amounts of context. And maybe the stuff that's secret that governments are using could, but it's it's pretty unlikely. I think it's probably going to take 5 or 10 years before they fix the context problem. And there's a lot of issues with hallucinations and things like that due to the fact that it can't really handle huge amounts of context. If you have really good configuration files, this could be a potential fix. But the thing is that I just don't think that it's going to be. I just don't really see this as a real possibility that you can, like, I think you use maybe less engineers and you spend less time in source code, but you really need somebody to know what's happening because the human brain is just far too complicated and it can see context far beyond anything that AI can really hold on to. And yeah, I just don't really think that this, I don't know, maybe. I don't really see this being like a reality for at least a very long time. A big VC told me this week that one of the top problems they see is this. Every time a company hires a new CTO, first thing a new CTO wants to do is rewrite all the software. You're not hiring CTOs, you're hiring senior engineers and architects who happen to get the title. Operate at a higher level, care about customers, outcomes, and leverage, not showing off their preferred tech stack. They should be hands-on, close to code. Not comfortable with the existing stack, you're basically signing up for a rewrite, not because the product needs it, but because they do. Huge waste of time and money. Yeah, because the thing is that most code basically works the same. No matter what you're actually working on, at the end of the day, it's probably all doing the same stuff. Like Ruby on Rails, that's APIs. That's an API tool, but people are making front ends with it. And it's probably not the easiest thing to work with unless you're extremely good and experienced with Ruby on Rails. But it's all kind of doing the same thing. You just have to do a little bit more customization or more legwork when actually interacting with the DOM. And they have more packages and stuff that help with that. So this is true. Like if you're a CTO and you're coming to a new company, if you're that level, you should have enough of a base understanding of how code and everything works so that you don't have to be so reliant on a tech stack. Like for instance, if you're going to be a CTO, then it really shouldn't matter whether their company is using Angular or React for their front end, or I guess even Vite. And it shouldn't really matter if they're using Java or .NET or like C#.NET or anything. Like you should understand how things work at a fundamental level so that you can pretty much work with anything and then make really concise decisions on how the pros and cons and what outcomes can be of real business outcomes of the pros and cons of doing any kind of change or switching. Like if, for instance, there's maybe 2 people on the team that know C# very well and can work in .NET very well, but the rest of the team has a lot more experience in Java, but your whole a bunch of your API is written in C Sharp .NET, then that actually might be a really good opportunity to either do a big training on C Sharp for the rest of the team for redundancy's sake, or B, switch it to Java and Spring. And also like .NET, I'm not really experienced with that, but it's pretty good with, I mean, people use it when interacting with SQL databases, but Spring has so many quality of life things when it comes to interacting with SQL databases, or maybe even using Kotlin. Like, there's benefits there, and sometimes you do need to improve. Like, C Sharp is old and .NET is old, and doing Java Spring is, I mean, that's also old, but maybe moving on to Kotlin, it's a lot more advanced, and there might be positives to that when it comes to like looking 10 years down the line. AI has broken recruiting. Hundreds of applications with few hours of posting a job. Almost all are fake. Real candidates are getting lost in the flood of AI. Man, I tell you, I even paid somebody to apply to jobs for me, and I've done this a few times, and so like it ends up making it so that I'm able to have a real person apply for me, so it's not like fake stuff, but it's I have not been able to get another job that way. It is so completely full of baloney. I think maybe mailing your resume to people is probably better. I think that just to get past all the gook. Sometimes I'm embarrassed to be a software architect. I write code, build prototypes, and design full systems, but I still spend too much time drawing boxes and lines to explain complex ideas. Our systems are sophisticated, but our tools for describing them are primitive. That needs to change. We need living blueprints. Architecture isn't just about documentation, but something the system can actually use. Here's a small step I've been working on. UI layer, structure, schema, state, signal, style. Toggleable. That's kind of interesting. But it's just, I mean, it's just documentation still. I think it's cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Three reasons I advise her not to take the job offer as a software engineer. Salary below market rate, less than 100K. Company older than 20 years. On-site only requirement. Imagine getting two offers, but having to turn them down both times. That's what one of my mentees did. She's a software engineer who's an AI engineer with 3+ years of work experience in Python building LLM pipelines. Getting mentorship, build technologies, learn how to innovate companies at work. I don't know, man. I think 3 years of work experience. I think after 3 years, maybe like taking less than 100K is probably not taking that is probably pretty smart. The on-site stuff, it seems to be like a huge luxury now. It's really been a lot harder to find fully remote stuff. And I understand there's other things that are going on there. It's not because it doesn't really have as much to do with the companies themselves, in a lot of cases. But I don't know. That's a tough one. That's quite a opinion. All right, that's enough for LinkedIn lunch break. I need to review this. I'm gonna go off stream for a sec and then I'll